Well, hello there, community. Welcome to this latest episode of DevCentral Connects. Boo is with us. Uh, was it earlier this week, even? Um, where we've moved away from our regular cadence of weekly shows, and so to have a bunch of them like right on top of each other is exciting. So Boo was out here earlier this week, and then today I'm going to talk to you or talk with you about Postman and Big IP Next Central Manager API. But that is not all that we have coming up. Before we jump into it, we got some exciting news about App World 2025, just released this week. That save the date. You can go out there to www.f5.com/appworld and get your details in there so that when registration comes about, you'll be notified and can jump on that. That's in Vegas, baby. So we can go. If you haven't been there to see the Sphere yet, I haven't. I'm excited about seeing that. I think I get to go in November too for a inside conference, and so I'll get a chance to see the Sphere twice. And of course, if you're interested in the other things that Las Vegas has to offer, I know my brother goes out there a lot for golf, especially in the wintertime, to get out of the Midwest cold doldrums. And so lots to do out there. But that's coming February 25th through 27th in 2025. So make sure that you get registered for that. And then on Monday, the 24th, Nginx 1, we're going to talk to Brett Wolmerans about that, what it is, what you can do with it, the benefits of doing so. And so I'm excited to talk to Brett about that. And then a week, and I think that one's at 10 a.m. Pacific on Monday. And then back here next Thursday, we're going to talk about Big IP Next Central Manager API, kind of the same things we're talking about today. But instead of working in Postman, we're going to work in Python, which of course is, the best anyway, right? I may be biased, but I like working in Python more than Postman. However, I have both tools in the toolbox and I like them both. But prefer Python for the heavy development side. But Postman has its benefits, and one of those benefits is being able to store state, because you're working in effectively files in the Postman GUI, and we'll get there. But it's nice to be able to have all your stuff and it's saved, and you can just continue to run commands and make a slight alteration and save it. And so I released an article 2 days ago on Tuesday, working with the Central Manager API and just getting started, not the whole API, but just with AS3. And that one is curl based. So working from the command line with curl. And, that's a great thing, but I find myself in VS Code, storing curl commands because, there's a lot of switches at the command line that you have to provide. And so, I keep that in a file in VS Code and then work at the terminal below that, so I can just get kind of a little copy and paste some updates. But I will have resources I'll drop throughout this show for you regarding articles on DevCentral on the Big IP Next, the start of the series on the Big IP Next automation, and whatnot. So, Jose, hello. Welcome to the show. Amkar, awesome. That's are you afraid? Are you afraid of Postman? It's like I know there could be fear there. And for a while I switched to a Postman like in VS Code called Thunder Client. And then Thunder Client changed their usage to, I think you could keep 25 items in a collection. Which might be fine, and maybe you can break up your collections so that you can get under that 25 limit with it without paying for the product. And that's one of those things. It's like good products you should not pay for, but in this world where we have 1,000 tools, you can't pay for all of them. And so I don't begrudge anyone for charging for their hard work. that's a good thing. But from a standpoint of being able to do the same thing, if I can do it in Postman without paying for it, versus VS Code in Thunder Client having to pay for a larger collection, there's workarounds for that, or just go back to Postman. So anyway, I digress. Let's jump into today's topic, and that's working with Postman. So first, let me get my screen shared here. And if you have any questions along the way, drop them. I'm more than willing to have just a conversation. It doesn't even have to be Postman related. If you have Next questions, if you have classic Big IP questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll see what I can answer. And so this is on Cloud Docs, the Big IP Next documentation, and we need to go grab the Postman collections for Next. And I'm going to grab them actually from all three versions, from 20.2, 20.1, and 20.0, because there's a little nuggets that have changed along the way, and some might not be in all collections. And so as we're kind of just working through and playing with the environment. And by the way, today is a sandbox. We're going to the playground, and we're going to see what we're going to be built. I really don't have an agenda other than to explore the Postman collection with you. I guess that's not entirely true. I do have an agenda, in that some of the work I've been doing with AS3, we're gonna look at some of that in Postman versus the article I wrote earlier this week, which is all around AS3. And so real quick, let me drop that article in there. I'm just going to drop this whole section in the comments so that you have all those. That's the work I've been doing on the automation side for Big IP Next so far. And if you haven't looked at AS3 at all yet, start with the YouTube shows, and that's the Embracing AS3 Foundations. That's like a 5-part series. It just really gets your feet wet with AS3. Or you can just throw caution to the wind and jump right in. I try and start each article from a standpoint of maybe you don't have all the foundation you need, and so I try not to skip too many steps. But it's going to be very helpful just to have an understanding of what AS3 is and how it works, jumping into actually using it. And then the last one I worked on Tuesday was dealing with the AS3 endpoints in Central Manager. And one of the things that I came to realize over the last few weeks, talking to some internal people, is the difference between Big IP Next and Classic when it comes to the APIs is that in Classic you had iControl REST, which was the imperative interface, but also it's where you ran commands, it's where you gathered your statistics, and so there was just the imperative nature of I want this, give this to me, piecemeal. And then you had the declarative onboarding, the application services for AS3, and then telemetry streaming. You had those declarative interfaces where hey, I want to build this. Here's all the data, and then throw it. And so in Big IP Next, it's all one API. And so the Central Manager API is both. It has the endpoints that are declarative, but then it also has all the imperative stuff as well. And so it took me just a little bit of time to work, and was like, wait, this is actually both things. And question from, where did my command? Okay, there we go. The Schwitty, will you talk about compatibility API, document API on Next as well? Yes. In the article that I just wrote, that was on Tuesday, I do cover both angles. The compatibility API, which supports posting multiple application services at once, because it's going into that same classic feel, and because it's the compatibility interface, you really can, for the most part, forklift your declarations from Classic right into Next, as long as the features that are used within those declarations are supported in Big IP Next. And so there is some work to do going from a Classic declaration to a Next declaration, and I do cover that in the article. And I show examples along the way for all CRUD operations: create, read, update, delete, the typical REST kind of functions. And for each step, I cover the compatibility interface and the document interface, and the differences that you have. Because like with compatibility, you throw the declaration and it goes to the instance immediately. So it's like a single step to create the document and the deployment. With the other one, that's the next one, it's a single app only, and you create the document and then you deploy the document. And so they're both are covered there from a curl perspective. Here we're going to work with with Postman. Yes, that's today, and I'll show both of those approaches, and it's slightly different interface, but we'll cover that. And what base operating system will Big IP Next have? TMOS OS with CentOS. Will it have a new distribution in Next? CentOS will be out of support starting June 30th. Yeah, so you'll see a change. Even in distributed cloud, the change has happened from the distributed cloud bases. CentOS is now Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And then for Next, it's actually not base OS in that way. It's a Kubernetes base for Big IP Next and F5 OS for that matter. So F5 OS, Big IP Next, it's Kubernetes underlying is the kind of the base OS, and so everything on top is a containerized environment. And the guidance there overall is that you really shouldn't have to know Kubernetes in order to work successfully in in the abstracted F5 layer. In my personal experience so far, I've found that whereas that may be true, and we have commands just we'll throw out like kubectl, the kubectl command with the log subcommands and making sure you can check pods and all that. I find that it would be very helpful to do a basic Kubernetes walkthrough tutorial. And if you have that and you just have an understanding of how the containerized environment works, and a basic understanding of the kubectl command and the different things that you can do with it, that will take you a long way to anything you need to do under the hood, which shouldn't be too much in Big IP Next. Because one of the other things with Big IP Next is that Central Manager is where your experience is going to be. You won't even have direct instance access for being able to run tools and utilities like you would have with Classic. There is a debug sidecar that you can connect to for troubleshooting and logs and stuff like that. But that's what the next environment's going to is and will continue to be. So thank you for that question, Johan. Okay. So we're going to download the Postman collections. So let's do that real quick. And I have them, so I have the link, so I don't need to go to them. But if you just search Postman in the Cloud Docs, you'll come up with this first link is create a Big IP Next instance locally on KVM. If you click into there, go about halfway down, actually most of the way down. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. You always have that note. It's like, no, I'm not going to sneeze. And then you get right back in the microphone and it's everywhere. Okay. I think I might be good. All right. So you just click on that Postman collection. You'll bring them down. I have, I'm going to go ahead and click those because I had this on a different system. Let me click those. Okay. So now I have all three. If I come this way, let me bring that back over to this machine. And then I have all three of those. So looks like I have two. All right. So now what I can do is let me unzip those. That's 22, 21. I should have, okay. So that's all three releases so far. V20.0, 20.1, and 20.2. Okay. So if I come over to Postman here. And you do have the ability in Postman, if you're not real familiar with Postman, to create different workspaces. I have, a workspace where I've got a bunch of different stuff, and some of these are custom, some of these are internal, and all that. So we're just going to go to a different workspace that I set up for this this show, and being able to separate and isolate the stuff I'm working on. So if I want to import, select files, and let me open these. We'll do 20.0 first. All right, and that's a really long name, so I'm going to rename that just to next 20.0. And we'll import the other two as well. Select files, 20.1. Rename that. And import 20.2. Getting started. Okay. And yeah, for the internal folks creating these, shorter is awesome for names of things. Okay, now we need to import an environment, and because all these environments are relatively, I think they're almost the same. So I'm going to go ahead and just import one of them, and we'll see how that helps. And if I have to import more of them, I will. Let me import the last one, just in case they added stuff. But usually that doesn't change too much. Okay. So my big IP next name, if I come over, let's go to my vSphere. I think this is the one I created for the show. These two are already created with the VMware provider, and that'll be a future show as well, to be able to go through the automation of using a provider. And I have access to an R series as well. And so maybe we'll do both in the same show. We'll do an R series and a VMware provider. And that's really cool, because you can manually create instances like I did for the show today, and that's just takes extra time in a different system. But with CM, you can, as long as you set up a provider like this vSphere client, my ESXi server, I can, from Central Manager, create instances, which is great. And I have an article ready to go as soon as we drop the next release, 20.2.1. I have another article on the VMware provider that will go through that. But my next virtual machine here is next VMM 0. And so if I come back to here, and of course we haven't named this in the system yet, but we'll set an initial, let's see. Actually, I don't even think I need to do that yet, because it'll do that in setup. So my IP address that got picked up on DHCP is there. Admin, I think it's admin currently. And then my CM is 172.16.2.105. And I'll give you my super secret CM password, which is CM, super complicated passphrase here, let me in, 00 bang. So no, I don't use that in any of my public facing stuff. So you don't need to go crack my passwords. And then admin for the next admin user CM. Where is the admin user? So right now, my admin user, but then it creates, I believe, maybe it doesn't. All right, we'll get there. All right, so my environment should be set up in order for me to use my CM, and it should be able to go out and talk to at least my big IP next device. So let's go to my collection. And we'll start here at 20.2. We got a virtual edition onboarding. So this allows you to onboard via the API instead of using CM. And I'll show you real quick in CM if you haven't onboarded yet. You come here into manage instances. And if you've created something in R series or VMware or in KVM, you can come in here and add and then come through the create new instance. That's where you would use the VMware or the R series or other providers. And eventually that would be like I'm guessing AWS and GCP and Azure once we get out there to be able to create them directly through the providers there. But in this case, because I have 172.16.2.194 as an instance I just created sitting out there waiting, I could do it here in the GUI. But we're going to instead do that via the API. So I've got my collection here. I can probably close my, close this. We'll leave the environment up. That'll be helpful. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to reset password. And what that's going to do is it's going to do a put against the API v1 me, and then the body there is it's just going to pass the password from our environment variables to do that. So if I do that, go ahead and click go. Are we going to have success here? Survey says that doesn't look good. Let me go back here for a second. So it says 294. So admin works. That should be. All right, environment variable. Set that right. Current value, admin on big IP next. Admin user and password. So let's look at the, yep. That should request timed out. All right, so next step, let's, can we ping it from this box? I mean, I got there in VMware, but let's, let me do a new window there. Bring this over. Okay. So that's working. And let's give that one more shot. Reset the admin password. That does not look like it's going to work. Okay. Well, we'll pivot here just for a second. Let's set this up manually, and then we can do some other stuff. Next to VMM 0. Yes, actually. And 2160. And then yes. All right. So while that's thinking and doing its thing, let me see any comments out here. Nope. Okay. Oh, that just rebooted. Give that a second to come up. And we have a new IP address, so let's update that. 160. And I don't believe I changed the password there. Okay, let me make sure it's still admin there. Okay. So I'll run setup if we, let me see. I'm all discombobulated now. All right. So let me just do, well, if it's still admin, I still need to reset this. So we could update that 160. Okay. Let's give it a shot. Oh, hello. I'm a dummy. Nobody caught it. So I have not set an environment. See this up here? No environment. I'm a dum-dum. So let's set that environment. And let's try that now. Connection refused. Okay, well, that's progress, right? That actually sent the, maybe it's not. Oh, okay. Well, we'll move on from the onboarding part of that. So that didn't go. All right. We'll move on from onboarding. That I must have done something wrong in the setup of my instance for this demo. But basically, and I've gone through this before, you reset your admin password, then you can actually log in. You can check the health of your instance. So if you're building an environment that's going to deploy these outside of CM, this is the process of getting your instances onboarded. You can check your onboarding jobs direct to. Oh wait, yeah, and then that's direct to the instance. You'll see whether that's been onboarded or not. There's a separate stuff for the hardware versus the virtual edition. But that's if you're going to do onboarding directly. Then you can also do onboarding in CM. But let's move on to application management. And so there's two different things you can do from a application service perspective. You can manage it directly in AS3, or you can use a templatized version with FAST, the FAST templates, and that this AS3 you are filling in the details with domain-specific understanding. You're filling out a virtual address. You're doing iRules and whatnot, and populating things in lower level schema. With FAST, pretty much all of that is extracted and say, hey, this is an HTTP app, and here's the IP address your clients are going to connect to. Here are the server IP addresses that they're going to connect to. Here's the certificate you need. However you want to build up that template, and then you can just populate the template and go. And so that can be something within a central manager you can build out as effectively kind of like an IApp from Classic in the next central manager, but also can just be an automated pipeline in your your CID or your CI/CD workflows. And so that's kind of exciting to get into the fast world, and we'll get there. But we're going to start at the lower levels to understand AS3. Then we can kind of climb the ladder to abstract some of that at fast. So today we're gonna work in fast. I'm going to change, make sure that my central manager is in there. Let me make sure. Go send that. Okay, so we do have an access token. That's good. And as you're working in Postman, keep that handy because depending on how long you are between refreshes, you'll expire, and then you have to go just touch the token again. But the great thing about how these Postman collections are set up is that if you go to these scripts, they will update your environment variables so that you don't have to like copy and paste all your data back and forth. It'll just pull that token in and then apply it. So if you add your own commands, you just need to make sure that you're referencing the environment variables that are there. And okay, so we've logged in. We're going to create an HTTP document. Big IP next one. I'm going to change that address to one I know is working. And so let me update that to 161, and that one is even licensed, and I believe that needs to be admin CM. And so the other thing that happens if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't experienced it yourself yet, is, give me a second, is that when Central Manager takes ownership of your instances, it deactivates the admin command or the admin user account that's on the instance, and another admin account, effectively a proxy account, is created on the instance. And so when you do it manually on or when you're onboarding in the Central Manager GUI, the recommendation it adds is just admin-cm. It can be anything. You can name it anything other than admin, because the admin account will still exist on the instance. It just deactivates it. And so you need you create a new account on that. And so admin-cm is the one that Central Manager uses as you send commands to Central Manager to deploy workloads on the instances. It uses that proxy account. So you connect the CM with your credentials for CM, and then it connects to the next instances with the credentials of the account that gets set up when the instance is onboarded. And so that's what we updated there. So let's go, let's log in again. And then, so we're going to create an HTTP app document. And I think that just creates in, oh no, so this is the, let me bring this back up here from the Schwitty, talking about the compatibility API versus the document API, okay? That, if you're looking at this right here, app v1 spaces default app services declare, this is the compatibility interface right here. And then you're using as a query parameter the target address. So what's going to happen here in one step is we're going to take this body here, which is class ADC, a traditional template or declaration that would deploy. Very likely that would also work on Classic, and so maybe not with that schema version, but with very little changes, this should work on both. But this will take through the compatibility interface, will create the document and then also deploy it to that instance. So let's go ahead and click send on that. And we got a 200 OK, which means that should have created. And so we can get that HTTP document and pull that back. And we can see that, hey, that is what is currently deployed. And looking through there. Okay. So that is meant to be the compatible interface. So anything additive that was created in Next is not going to be as obvious. And so if we come back and look at Central Manager here, we have healthy instances here. The first one here is the one we licensed. That's the one we just deployed the application to. So if we come back over here to applications, and you can see that the My Tenant, My App, I think that's the one we just created, because I created a bunch of, well, let's look. What do we call that? My App in My Tenant. My Tenant, My App. So it's this one. I have some other things I created. I'm just going to blow those things away. And oh, that's right. I can't delete multiple things. That's all right. Let me get rid of those real quick. And then My Tenant 2, delete. And then tenant 2. Okay. So if I refresh that, should be just what we created here. And in the GUI, you can come here and you'll see that same application that was that. And it's hidden in the Central Manager. You'll notice that the ADC class is kind of missing from that declaration. It's there. It's just hidden in Central Manager in the GUI view. But if you come back here, you can see that class is there. Okay. So then, we can go through the full. They don't have the update in the compatibility interface, and the reason is you don't. There is no put or patch operation with Classic. Everything's a post, and so if you want to update the AS3 declaration, you just change it and then repost it. And so the create and the update are the same in the compatibility interface. So we can delete that application. And then, here's the other scary thing about the Classic one is that if you have effectively an empty body, if you just pass an empty payload and delete to target address at this app services declare, you'll knock out everything in AS3. So, always want to be careful to make sure that you're deleting an application. In fact, on the delete side, what you can do next is the declare. You can actually put the tenant right after declare and pull that off, so that it's only pulling the tenant of what you want to do, not necessarily having to evaluate a greater amount of schema. So always be careful with the delete operation in the compatibility interface. But in 20. Let me go ahead and delete that application, because that's the only one that we created in here. It's, just say, hey, delete that tenant. You could do it that way, or you can just put it up on the URI. So delete that. Access token expired. So let's re-log in and then delete that app. And so that is gone. So if we want to pull back, you say, hey, there's nothing there. 204, no content. Okay. So we have walked through with just a click of the button, creating documents. You still have to go through the effort of creating a document in AS3. So it's not like you're out of the work building a document versus, the click ops of going through. But the benefit is, like this is showing here, is even though this isn't a fast template where all of these AS3 schema are abstracted, the need to come in here and fill out every little critical piece in AS3 is abstracted, because I'm using environment variables, and I'm doing that here in Postman, but you could just as well do that in, Terraform or Ansible or, native Python, or like if you're using Pulumi as a configuration tool, you can abstract away the values and use that in Jinja templating or whatever. And so that is the compatibility interface. Now let's go over in 20.1 collection. They actually use the document. So let me log in again. All right. And then here we're going to create the document. And this is two-stage. First, it creates the document on Central Manager. And the difference there is, okay, we got a 200 okay. So if we flip over real quick and look at Central Manager, exit out of that, and refresh here. So you'll see this draft status. So we've created a document on Central Manager, but it doesn't live anywhere. So there's no instances that is delivered to. And so the second step here is that we actually deploy that. Let me go ahead and get it, because I want to point something out. So here you have an ID of that document. And so in the ID, that's used for the deployment. So you get up here to the URI, and you're going to go documents, the document ID, and then deployment. So that updates that URI endpoint to be able to deploy. So if you are thinking forward on, when you actually get to where you're going to be deploying documents in the future, you can go ahead and create all your documents. They're in a draft state, and then you collect up all those document IDs, and then you can just iterate through a list of IDs to deployments. And so that can be a for loop, or whatever language that you're going to do. You have all your documents. Okay, it's my maintenance window at 1 a.m. on a Saturday. Do you guys deploy on a Saturday? I've worked prior to F5. Our big maintenance windows of the week were on a Saturday at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I guess technically that had been Sunday morning at 1 a.m. But I didn't love that, because that meant not a whole lot of people available to help troubleshoot and assist. So we had a lot of rollbacks because nobody was really available. But anyway, I digress. So you can collect up all your document, you get everything deployed and staged as a draft, and then go. With the compatibility interface, it's an all or nothing kind of shot. And so anyway, let's go ahead and send that deployment. And that was the task was created successfully. So we get a note right away, say, hey, I'm going to create that, but it didn't necessarily in that instant stage. It's like, hey, I don't know that that's been done yet. So I've got a task ID to create that, and I've got an ID of the deployment itself. So if we pull back that document now, I should have as part of the metadata there. Now I have deployments, which is cool. So I can look at, here's the target instance that it's on. Here's the ID of my deployment, which is different than the ID of the document. So I have a document ID, I have a deployment ID, and then of course the instance that it was at, and there should have been the task ID of where it was recorded. So as you're going through, thinking through the future, when you're actually going to be doing this in your environments, you have additional metadata to be able to help in when you're going through maintenance windows and all that. So if you need to do any kind of root cause analysis and all that, you've got extra data and say, okay, these 5 applications that are all related to each other, they needed to all deploy. 4 of the 5 of them did, and this one didn't. And maybe you can just start tracking down that one, but you kind of have a timeline associated to deployment tasks and when they were completed and all that. So that's going to be extremely helpful. And so that's the benefit of going, the single document route through the next specific interface versus the compatibility interface. And if you're just getting started with AS3, I would recommend the next specific one, because there's a lot of benefit there for information tracking and all that. The compatibility interface, however, allows you to deploy a lot of things at once. You can deploy multiple applications all in a single declaration, whereas this route you have to do one at a time. So it's there's choices for you, but I like the path forward with the next specific interface. Okay, so that was done. It doesn't look like we have a delete option there, but I can mess up my thing here. You can delete the here's what I was going to say. In the article, I tracked this. So you can do it either way on the deletion side. You can delete the deployment only and keep the document. And that's, you do a delete against the deployment. However, if you delete the document outright, it deletes the deployment and the document together. So you have choices there as well, and there may be reasons why you want to just blow away the whole thing. I think, and I don't own the roadmap or whatever, but I think eventually document versioning in Central Manager might be supported. But obviously, if you're doing the automation side, you're probably going to have versioning in your own repos anyway, and so it's not necessarily a value add to versioning in Central Manager. But it would be handy to have that version so that you can version your documents separate from having to control that just by what's deployed. And that's up and coming. Okay. We have, anybody have any questions or comments or anything you want to share? Let me know. You guys are quiet today. But let me dig in here to a couple different things they have in, let's see, we're in the next 20.1. Disconnected licensing. This was something I think that was released in 20.1. And I don't have, I'm not going to walk through those individually, but that allows you to, like, if you're in an environment where your access to license server is restricted from Central Manager and you just aren't allowed to have your systems connected directly to the internet for them to be able to call out, you can go through the process of multi-stage, where you can pull the data from the F5 side, push the data to the license servers, pull the data from the license servers, push to the Central Manager, so that middle jump box technology, you can do that. I think that was introduced in 20.1. And then we can come into the device emergency procedures in here, where you can look at instance troubleshooting, and then here is where you can get system metrics. So let me log in again. We can get system details. So let's take a look at our big up heating. Oh, that's direct. Okay. So this is not even proxied through Central Manager. This one's direct, pulling from the API. And so you can kind of come in here. You can get to see not a whole lot in there, but you can see my platform type is a VMware, or it's a virtual edition running on VMware. You see my NTP servers. So some of that information is what you would see if you logged into Central Manager and looked at the instance itself. Come in here. And so you can see my NTP servers, time zone. So some of that information's there, not all of it. You get a system manifest. Okay, so that's my version. You can see my logs. Okay, that's a super handy one. You can get the logs through a lot of little command switches by enabling debug access and pulling them down and all that. But to be able to see, oh wait, those are all the individual logs. So, oh, that's the list log. Okay, so that's just telling me all the different logs on the system. So no shortage of logs for you to start to get familiar with on what kind of information is going to go to all those logs. A lot of them are probably not going to be helpful to you at all. It's mostly going to be helpful to support on how the system's behaving. But documentation will come on the things that will be useful to the end users. System metrics. Take a look at. That is not pretty. Okay, so you got CPU data in there, interface bytes in and out. Okay, so that would be a super useful one to kind of track. If you don't want to, there's a couple options with looking at your system stuff, and with Classic, you could do SNMP straight to the instances. That's not available today. I'm not really sure what the roadmap is for SNMP, but this is somewhere you can pull that data directly off the boxes. There might be some streaming capabilities to send to like a Grafana or Zabbix or whatever to be able to push that data to stream it to some dashboard or whatever, or you can build your own dashboard and pull it at some interval. So you have choices there looks like the API can pull that, no problem. And so create a log archive. Okay, so if you want a snapshot in time, pull your logs, you can do that like on a daily. Create the log archive, check the job. Once the job's done, then you can download that log archive and then delete that archive. So keep your system, your instances clean by creating the job, then downloading and whatnot. And then looks like a lot of checks to say, okay, is that job done? So this is like your the difference between a throwaway script that you're creating a job and actually, hey, I want to manage the system and I want to make sure that I'm doing it in a clean and complete way. So not only am I creating the jobs, but that I'm managing the jobs and making sure they're done. Checking TMM logs. And that one is a page not found. Go, let me do my list logs again. Do we have a TMM log there? Come back to, what was that? Check TMM logs. F5 SSM TMM standout.log. Okay, so F5 FSM TMM. Standout.log.1. Still not found. Okay, so we'll have to look into that in the Postman collection. I wonder if that's been cleaned up in 20.2. Let's take a look. Let's see. Instance troubleshooting. It looks like the same. Okay, I'll have to look into that one. HA is another thing that I think you can set up. I don't know that it's in the Postman collection, but it is in the API, and you can do that. And I'll be working through all that stuff, not necessarily in Postman, but over the course of the next several months, I'll be working through, automating the standard stuff you do on a daily basis. So you can factory reset an instance, which if you've still connected to it, but it's fairly hosed and you just want to start over, you can do that. In fact, all my instances, I'm about to redo my lab because I have, for example, I've got 10.02 and 10.03 are my networks, but I've got VLANs 30 and 40 for some reason. I don't remember what my thought process was around that. So I've got things that don't make a whole lot of sense in the way I set up my lab. So I'll be blowing all that stuff away. So factory reset, be able to do that without blowing away my interfaces. My instances, I can just factory reset them and then start from scratch. So that's nice. Check files, download, view, fast applications and fast templates. So there's a lot that you can do in there. The thing that I don't know if you can kick off a TCP dump via the API yet. That might be something that we just figure out a path forward on that. I have some solutions I built for Classic that allow you to kick off and collect and download and all that. So I'll look at that as well to be able to have an analog for that. Here's an HA failover instance to be able to just initiate a failover. But okay, so we're about out of time. We looked at AS3. We were going to try and onboard a virtual edition. That didn't go well. We should be able to check health on that system. My not the one we were going to try, but check an onboarding job. That probably wouldn't be there at this point. So we'll figure that out and maybe we'll try to onboard for Python next week, and we'll go through those same steps, even though it's not in Postman. But anyway, I like Postman. It's a good tool for discovering APIs, and so I have a limited limited stuff here in the Postman collection on that front. But as you discover the API, in fact, let me go back here to in the articles I shared with you, the API itself. Let me pull that up. Give me a second. Yeah. So the API specification, you can go through everything that is available in the API. You can also get that directly on the API itself by going to API, Open API, and pull down all the functions that are defined in the Central Manager API, what methods that are available to support those. But I can drop this in the comments, and this is a good one to start getting familiar with. It'll tell you what your payload should look like, and what you can expect as a response. And one other thing I'll share with Postman, if you're not familiar with the tool, is anything that you do in here. So if I come back over here to get the API, you can take what's here, and if you come over to this little code bracket here on the side, then in whatever language that you want to work in, whether it's a curl tool, or if you want to use Kotlin, you can pull a sample of that exact thing in Postman, JavaScript or Node.js or whatever. You can pull that out. You can use Python requests. So if you're going to use the request module in Python, it walks you through that specific example in whatever language you want to do. So if you have a language that you're comfortable with and you want to start working with the API, but you don't know exactly all the parameters that you need to build, you can start in Postman to pull a few things out to get a base for what that's going to look like, and then go. Anybody doing Rust yet? There's a lot of excitement around Rust, especially on the Python side. It seems like a lot of the Python module maintainers are starting to move a lot of what was C native into some Rust functions to speed up on the Python side. A lot of the tooling around packaging and linting and all that seems to be moving to Rust. So I haven't done anything with Rust yet, but that seems to be a popular direction. And so anyway, curl is nice to pull out if you just want to work at the command line, like I have for some other things. But anyway, that is looking at the API with Postman. So hopefully that was a useful exercise, just play in the sandbox today. Unfortunate that the onboarding of that instance didn't happen directly, but such is the case for doing things live. And so I look forward to seeing you on Monday with Brett as we talk about Nginx 1, as well as next Thursday when we do a little bit of playing with Python. And on the Python front, I'm working on I'm working on a little tool to be able to kind of wrap token management and being able to use your CRUD operations without having to build everything out from scratch. Leonardo Souza is a former MVP in the DevCentral community, built a tool called Big Rest for classic Big IP. And so some of the work on the tooling I'm doing is kind of based on that, to where you still kind of need to know the API a little bit, but I'm going to create some wrapper functions and some utilities to be able to abstract some of that away if you want to use the utilities, or you can just go native and use all the endpoint methods if you know them. So with that, let me drop a couple more comments here. the articles that I've written in the Big IP Next series started with like foundational information on installing, licensing, HA building, and all kind of focused around ClickOps. But this latest series, we're starting to get into the automation around that. And if you're not a member of the Big IP Next group, make sure you go out and join. The group. It's at community.f5.com. That's DevCentral. Come find the group. I'll add you if you request access. And so if you want to start looking at Big IP Next Access, which is the APM next steps, if you want to look at SSLO for Next, those are limited access right now. So those articles aren't in the common area, but there's articles being cranked out, and it's good stuff. So join the group, start to kind of read up on SSLO and Access. LTM and WAF are RDGA, so that stuff's coming into the general technical articles section. That first article, the first things, anything that's related Next, I'm tagging, and so there's like 23 articles already in that solution. So with that, just a reminder on F5 App World 2025. Make sure that if you are interested in joining us in Vegas, get out there, f5.com/appworld, get your details in there so that we can reach out when we're ready to start registration. The DevCentral team will be there, and I look forward to meeting you in person. We got App World back in February, and it's so great to be back with people because that was like maybe my, other than user groups, my first time being out with customers since before COVID. And so, I'm excited about the re-entering the world with customers and partners and stuff. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope it was helpful. And Jose, you're very welcome. And we'll see you out there in the community.
Well, thanks for checking out that video. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. While you're down there, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. You might want to check out one of these videos over here. And if you haven't already, go check out community.f5.com. This is where all the DevCentral Connects hosts hang out, as well as the rest of the community. It's free to sign up, and we'll see you there.